Sometimes, even when you win, you lose something irreparable. I stare at the framed photo on my desk, a younger me, vibrant, optimistic. Before the weight of $500,000 lie crushed my spirit and ignited a firestorm of vengeance. My sister, Clara, she lost everything. Her carefully curated life, her reputation, her husband's respect. All of it crumbled into dust because of my choices. Was it worth it? The quiet satisfaction of seeing her face contoured in pure, unadulterated horror as her world imploded, balanced against the gnawing emptiness of knowing I deliberately orchestrated another person's downfall. I sleep better now, free from her insidious whispers and constant manipulations, but the echoes of her screams still haunt the quiet hours of the night. Tell me, truly, was my vengeance too sweet, or justly deserved? It all began, as most slow, burn tragedies do, with a seemingly innocuous conversation. Clara, my older sister by 3 years, had always been the golden child. Beautiful, effortlessly charming, and blessed with an almost pathological need to control. I, on the other hand, was the quiet, artistic one, content to observe from the sidelines. Our parents, successful but emotionally distant, always seemed to orbit Clara's dazzling sun. When our beloved grandmother, Nana Rose, passed away when I was 22, it was a profound loss. Nana Rose was my anchor, my confidante, the only person who truly saw me. I remember her soft hands, the scent of lavender and old books that clung to her, her unwavering belief in my potential. Her will was read a few weeks later, a somber affair in a lawyer's office. It was brief, mostly leaving her modest estate to various charities, with a small sum each for Clara and me, or so I thought. Clara was there, of course, impeccably dressed, a picture of composed grief. She squeezed my hand, offered a comforting smile, and said Nana loved us so much. We'll always have her memories. I clung to that, to the warmth of her sentiment, oblivious to the viper lurking beneath. Years passed. Life, as it tends to do, unfolded. I struggled, as many young artists do, working odd jobs to support my painting, constantly battling self-doubt. Clara, meanwhile, soared. She married well, a successful architect named David, and lived a life of opulent comfort. Their house was a spread in a magazine, her wardrobe an envy of designers, her social calendar a whirlwind of galas and exotic vacations. And with every success of hers came a subtle, yet persistent, jab from her, a passive-aggressive needle, expertly inserted, always under the guise of concern. Oh, darling, still living in that tiny apartment, you really should consider a more stable career. Art is such a gamble, isn't it? Or, your latest painting is interesting. So much passion! Maybe you could try something a little more marketable. Each comment, delivered with a saccharine smile, chipped away at my confidence, making me question my path, my worth. I'd confide in her my struggles to make rent, the constant rejection from galleries, and she'd listen intently, then offer unsolicited advice that always circled back to my perceived financial shortcomings. It's a shame you have to work so hard. She'd sigh. Life could be so much easier, couldn't it? One particularly brutal winter, I almost gave up. My art supplies were dwindling, my landlord was hounding me, and a gallery show I'd poured my heart into had bombed. I called Clara, desperate, hoping for some genuine sisterly comfort. She invited me over for dinner at her magnificent home, which, even in my despair, felt like walking into a gilded cage. During the meal, as David, her husband, chatted politely about some new project, Clara leaned across the mahogany table, her eyes twinkling with a familiar, unsettling amusement. So, she purred, still enjoying your little bohemian life. Tell me, are you finding your 500,000 trust fund useful for those experiences you're always talking about? The fork clattered from my hand. The clinking of crystal, David's polite laughter, the hum of their perfectly curated life, it all faded into a deafening roar in my ears. 500,000 trust fund. I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. Clara's smile didn't falter. Oh, darling, she said, feigning surprise, didn't you know? Nana Rose set one up for you. $500,000 to be accessed at your 25th birthday. You're 27 now, aren't you? It's been sitting there for 2 years. My mind reeled. 2 years. 2 years of scraping by, of agonizing over bills, of nearly abandoning my passion. 2 years of Clara's subtle digs about my finances, all while knowing I had a safety net, a lifeline, a fortune I knew nothing about. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. The trust was real. I remembered the will reading, the small sum, the lack of any mention of a trust. Why? Why would Clara lie about something so significant? Why would she let me suffer? The rest of the evening was a blur. I mumbled excuses, rushed out of their pristine home, and called Nana Rose's lawyer the moment I was in my car. He was initially hesitant, citing client confidentiality. But when I explained what Clara had said, a different tone entered his voice. He asked for some time to review the files. The next day he called back, his voice grave. "Hear my last name," he began. "Your grandmother did indeed establish a trust fund for you. 500,000 to be released on your 25th birthday. He paused. However, the funds were withdrawn shortly after your 25th birthday, with a notarized signature. Your sister, Clara, was listed as the trustee, responsible for informing you and facilitating the transfer." The world tilted. Clara wasn't just aware of the trust, she was the administrator. She hadn't just neglected to tell me, she had actively, deliberately stolen my inheritance. Every struggle, every tear, every moment of self-doubt she had subtly encouraged, it was all part of her twisted game. She wanted me to stay small, to remain in her shadow, to be the less successful sister she could pity and patronize. The realization was a cold, hard knot in my stomach, quickly replaced by a furious inferno. I went home, not to despair, but to a chilling clarity. The years of emotional manipulation, the financial hardship she had knowingly allowed me to endure, the sheer audacity of her deceit, it coalesced into a singular, burning desire for justice. Not just to reclaim my money, but to dismantle the carefully constructed edifice of her perfect life. I began to research, to meticulously piece together the puzzle of her deception. I dug through old documents, contacted mutual acquaintances, and even, sickeningly, feigned casual interest in her financial dealings during our infrequent calls. I learned that Clara had indeed taken the money, investing a significant portion in a floundering startup that David, her husband, had recently championed. She had been desperate to impress him, to prove her business acumen, and my trust fund had been a convenient, illicit solution. This wasn't just about $500,000 anymore. This was about years of psychological torture, about a lifetime of being second, best, about the casual cruelty of a sister who would rather see me fail than thrive. The anger was a fuel, burning away my passive nature, replacing it with a steely resolve. I spent weeks, then months, building my case, gathering undeniable evidence. I knew if I went to a lawyer, it would be a lengthy, messy process, and Clara would undoubtedly try to spin a narrative of misunderstanding. No, this needed to be surgically precise, publicly humiliating, and utterly devastating. I wanted her to feel the ground crumble beneath her feet, just as she had made me feel for so long. Now, pause for a moment. Put yourself in my shoes. You've just discovered your beloved grandmother left you a life-changing sum, and your own sister, your flesh and blood, stole it, letting you suffer, letting you believe you were a failure. What would you do? Would you confront her quietly? Would you seek legal recourse and let the courts handle it? Or would you, like me, feel an overwhelming urge to inflict a similar, soul-crushing blow, to tear down her carefully constructed facade and expose her for the deceitful monster she truly was? Take a moment, go to the comments below, and tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Pause for effect, a subtle shift in music, perhaps more intense. Driving, my plan was meticulous, honed to perfection over months of sleepless nights. It involved David. He was a good man, if a little naive, completely besotted with Clara. He believed in her implicitly, thought she was flawless. That was her greatest vulnerability. I started subtly, reconnecting with David under the guise of wanting to mend bridges with Clara. I'd mentioned casually that I'd been going through some old papers from Nana Rose, specifically her financial records. David, a numbers man, showed genuine interest. He talked about his own financial ventures, including the struggling startup Clara had invested in. This was my opening. The day came. Clara was hosting one of her elaborate dinner parties, a glittering affair with all their important friends, her husband's business associates, and even a few of the very same gallery owners who had rejected my art over the years. I arrived late, dressed simply, a stark contrast to Clara's dazzling couture. The air was thick with the scent of expensive food and hushed conversation. Clara, ever the gracious host, greeted me with a tight smile. "So glad you could make it, darling. Such a lovely evening, isn't it?" I smiled back, a genuine, unsettling smile. "It is," I agreed. "And I have a small contribution to make it even lovelier." Mid-dinner, after the main course had been cleared and the wine was flowing freely, I cleared my throat. All eyes turned to me. Clara's expression shifted, a flicker of unease in her eyes. "I just wanted to share something," I began, my voice clear and calm, "that Nana Rose wrote in an old journal of hers. It's a beautiful passage about family and trust." I pulled out a carefully prepared, bound copy of what appeared to be Nana's journal, and began to read, my voice soft, but carrying. I had woven excerpts of Nana's actual thoughts on inheritance and fairness with fabricated entries, specifically detailing her desire for me to have the trust fund for my artistic pursuits. I spoke of her hopes for my future, her belief in my talent, and the explicit instructions she'd left for Clara as trustee. I watched Clara's face drain of color, her eyes darting frantically between me and David. Then, I paused, looking directly at David. "It's so poignant," I said, "especially when you consider how important trust and transparency are in all our dealings." Speaking of which, David, I was so intrigued when you mentioned Clara's investment in your startup. It made me wonder, seeing as my own $500,000 trust fund from Nana Rose disappeared right around the same time. Clara, darling, what a coincidence, wouldn't you say? The silence that followed was deafening. Every single eye in the room swiveled to Clara, then to me, then back to Clara. David's face, initially confused, slowly contorted into a mask of dawning horror. Clara, cornered, speechless, could only stare at me, her perfect facade crumbling. What are you talking about?" David finally choked out, his voice hoarse. I laid out the evidence, not with fury, but with a quiet, devastating calm. The lawyer's notarized statement confirming the trust, and its withdrawal by Clara. The bank statements I had meticulously gathered, showing the large transfer from the trust account directly into an investment account linked to Clara, and indirectly to David's startup. I presented it all like an impartial journalist, leaving no room for doubt, no space for denial. The looks on the faces around the table were a mix of shock, disgust, and a morbid fascination. Clara tried to speak, but no words came. She was trapped, exposed, her deception laid bare for everyone to see. David looked at her, his love turning to ash in his eyes. He rose from the table, his chair scraping loudly across the polished floor. "Clara," he said, his voice laced with disbelief and betrayal, "what have you done?" The evening ended in chaos. David walked out, the other guests made their hurried, awkward exits, and Clara was left alone in her grand, silent house, her life in ruins. The divorce was swift and brutal. David, feeling utterly humiliated and financially compromised by Clara's reckless, illegal investment of my money, initiated proceedings immediately. She lost half her assets, her social standing evaporated, and the startup, without David's continued support, eventually imploded. She was left with a fraction of her former wealth, a tarnished reputation, and the crushing knowledge that she had brought it all upon herself. And me. I got my money back, of course, with interest. But the $500,000, while a comfort, didn't erase the scars. The years of emotional manipulation, the deep-seated betrayal, the deliberate cruelty, those wounds ran deeper than any financial recompense could heal. I found freedom, certainly. The shadow she cast over my life was gone, replaced by a quiet independence. My art flourished, unburdened by self-doubt, fueled by a newfound strength. But the experience irrevocably changed me. I learned that even the closest bonds can harbor insidious poisons, and that sometimes justice demands a price not just from the wrongdoer, but from the avenger too. There are moments, still, when I wonder if the satisfaction of her downfall truly outweighed the lingering bitterness it left in my own heart. So, here we are. This is my story, a tale of trust, betrayal, and the complex, often messy, path to justice. I hope it made you think, made you question, made you feel something. If it did, please consider giving this video a like. It truly helps the channel. If you want to hear more raw, unfiltered stories like this, hit that subscribe button and join our community. And finally, I genuinely want to know your thoughts. Leave a comment below and tell me, how do you deal with betrayal? and what do you believe is the true cost of revenge? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.